Good morning, good day, and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all races, ages, genders, sexual orientations, religions, etc. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the person who informed me about today's topic. Keep them coming if you got more. Today I'm going to be talking about a historical figure whose name may not be as widely recognized as Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, or even Pol Pot. Despite that, this person's actions contributed to one of the most notorious humanitarian catastrophes of the modern era. He was a king who ruled with an iron fist, while speaking about civilization, Christianity, and progression, while overseeing a system built on violence, forced labor, and unimaginable suffering. To some in his home country, he was known as the Builder King. To others, he represented oppression, exploitation, and death. I'm talking, of course, about King Leopold II. One may ask, who was King Leopold II? And why is he considered one of history's most controversial monarchs? Well, Leopold Louis Philip Mary Victor was born on the 9th of April, 1835, in Brussels, Belgium. He was the son of King Leopold I and Queen Louise Marie of France. The two previously had another son, Louis Philip, but would pass during his infancy. King Leopold I and Louise Marie would have another son named Prince Philip. Growing up, Victor was raised knowing there was a strong possibility he would someday become king. From an early age, he displayed intelligence, discipline, and an unusual fascination with geography, economics, and overseas trade. While other European princes focused on military glory, Victor became obsessed with something else: colonies. As the next heir to the throne, Victor was granted the title of Duke of Brabant in 1840 and was the sub-lieutenant of the army. That same year, King Leopold I and Louise Marie would have their first and only daughter, Princess Charlotte. Belgium had gained its independence from the Netherlands in 1930. Compared to the neighboring countries of Britain, France, Spain, and Portugal, Belgium possessed no overseas empire. By 1850, Louis Philip, Victor's maternal grandfather, passed away, having been forced to flee the United Kingdom following the French Revolution of 1845. This greatly affected his mother's health. She would pass away due to tuberculosis when Victor was 15 years old. In 1853, at the age of 18, Victor married Archduke Marie Henriette of Austria. The two were polar opposites of each other, as Henriette was outgoing and energetic, while Victor was reserved and withdrawn. Together, they had 4 children. It was also during this time Victor traveled extensively across Europe, the Middle East, India, and North Africa. These journeys reinforced his belief that colonies brought wealth and prestige. He became convinced Belgium needed an overseas territory, even if his own government showed little interest. In 1854, Victor traveled more throughout the previously mentioned areas. He traveled through the Mediterranean, spent significant time researching in Egypt, and toured Palestine. These trips were framed as educational tours, but he was really analyzing ways to acquire land. By 1855, Victor became a member of the Belgian Senate. He was proactive in the Senate, especially in matters concerning the development of Belgium and its trade, and began to urge Belgium's acquisition of colonies. he repeatedly urged Belgian politicians to establish an overseas empire, urging that colonies would enrich Belgium's economy and increase its influence around the world, though Parliament refused. In 1860, Victor and Henriette would have their second child and first son, Prince Leopold. When King Leopold I died on the 10th of December, 1865, Victor ascended to the Belgian throne a week later at the age of 30. It was because of his position as king he would leave the army at the rank of lieutenant general. Although he possessed constitutional powers, Belgium was a parliamentary monarchy. The king could not simply order the government to acquire colonies. This frustrated King Leopold immensely. Many lawmakers believed colonies were expensive, dangerous, and unnecessary. King Leopold then decided that if Belgium would not build an empire, he would build one himself. In 1869, his son would fall into a pond and died of pneumonia. This greatly upset King Leopold and put immense strain on his marriage with Henriette. After failing to have another son following the birth of their third daughter, in 1872, the two would split. In 1876, King Leopold organized a private holding company disguised as an international scientific and philanthropic association, which he called the International African Society. Publicly, he claimed his goals were scientific exploration, ending the Arab slave trade, and bringing Christianity to Central Africa. Privately, however, King Leopold wrote that Africa represented one of the last opportunities to obtain immense wealth. When suspicion grew about the company in 1878, King Leopold would hire the explorer Henry Morton Stanley to go on a secret mission into the Congo Basin. Stanley built roads, established armed trading outposts, and used force, trickery, and alcohol to compel local African chiefs into signing over 450 treaties that surrendered their land sovereignty to Leopold's front organization. In 1884, European powers entered what historians called the Scramble for Africa. Britain, France, Germany, Portugal, Italy, and Spain all competed to claim African territory, which was driven by the Second Industrial Revolution. Recognizing the opportunity, King Leopold portrayed himself as a humanitarian instead of a conqueror. During his reign, he organized many geographical conferences. His most notable was the Berlin Conference, which began on the 15th of November, 1884. This was a conference of 14 countries discussing the regulation of European colonization and trade in Africa. King Leopold used his pre-existing heavily armed outposts as physical proof of his effective occupation. This was enough to convince the other nations to recognize him, not Belgium, as the sovereign ruler of a territory, approximately 76 times larger than Belgium itself. It concluded with the signing of the General Act of Berlin on the 26th of February, 1885. 3 months following the conference on the 29th of May, 1885, King Leopold would lay claim to his new possession, which became known as the Congo Free State. Despite its name, there was very little freedom. What followed was a reign of terror that is rarely talked about today. At first, ivory generated significant profits. Soon afterward, however, the invention of inflatable bicycle tires and automobile tires caused worldwide demand for natural rubber to skyrocket. King Leopold realized his colony possessed one of the world's richest supplies of wild rubber vines. To maximize profits, an enormous forced labor system was established. This labor system was monitored by the Force Publique, the military of the Congo Free State and Belgian army. Its officers were almost entirely European. Its soldiers were primarily African men, commanded under strict discipline. Their mission was simple: collect rubber, suppress resistance, and punish anyone who disobeyed. With their mission came quotas that had to be met, in which men were forced to collect wild rubber and other goods at a certain weight. Failure to meet collection quotas was punishable by brutal punishment to include mutilation and death. The Force Publique were required to provide a hand of their victim as proof when they had shot and killed someone. It was believed that they would otherwise use ammunition imported from Europe for hunting. As a consequence, the rubber quotas were in part paid off in chopped off hands. Women and children were frequently held hostage until enough rubber had been delivered. As if this wasn't enough, King Leopold issued a new rule, which mandated that Africans in a large part of the Free State to sell their harvested products of mostly ivory and rubber only to the state. This law extended an earlier decree declaring that an unoccupied land belonged to the state. Any ivory or rubber collected from the state-owned land must belong to the state. This created a de facto state-controlled monopoly. Villages were burned. People were whipped with a device known as the shikot, a whip made from hippopotamus hide, capable of tearing flesh. And executions became common. With this system, it generated extraordinary wealth for King Leopold. Meanwhile, the Congolese population endured famine, disease, displacement, and unfathomable terror. In 1890, American historian and activist George Washington Williams traveled to the Congo and condemned Leopold's administration, accusing it of widespread murder, slavery, and abuse. He became the first person to use the phrase "crimes against humanity" to describe what he saw, publishing his findings globally while Leopold was only 5 years into his rule. In 1903, British diplomat Roger Casement investigated the Congo personally. He spent 4 months investigating the Congo. His report documented executions, hostage-taking, forced labor, starvation, mutilations, and widespread violence. This led to the creation of his 1904 document called the Casement Report. In 1904, English missionary Alice Seeley Harris took photographs documenting amputated hands. The most famous was the picture showing a man named Nsala, who was looking at what remained of his 5-year-old daughter, who was killed and eaten by the guards. The photographs were sent back to the UK. These photos shocked much of the world when they became public. For years, much of Europe believed King Leopold's public image. Missionaries, however, began witnessing something very different. British shipping clerk E.D. Morel noticed something suspicious while examining cargo records. Ships leaving Europe for the Congo carried weapons and soldiers. Ships returning carried enormous quantities of rubber and ivory. Morel concluded that forced labor, not commerce, was producing the colony's wealth. He published his findings in late 1904 in his book, King Leopold's Rule in Africa. Together, Morel and Casement launched one of history's earliest international human rights campaigns. Newspapers across Europe and America published eyewitness accounts. Missionary photographs exposed the brutality. Public opinion gradually turned against King Leopold. Under mounting international pressure, King Leopold struggled to defend his administration. He denied responsibility, blamed corrupt officials, and even argued that reports had been exaggerated. Independent investigations, however, largely confirmed widespread abuses. On the 15th of November, 1908, Belgium's parliament forced Leopold to surrender personal ownership of the Congo, ending his 23-year reign of hellish terror. With this, the Congo Free State ceased to exist. It became the Belgian Congo, administered directly by the Belgian government. Although forced labor and inequality continued under colonial rule, many of the most extreme practices associated with King Leopold's personal regime were reduced. King Leopold II died on the 17th of December, 1909, at the age of 74. Oddly enough, this was the exact same day in 1865 that he took over as King of Belgium. The crown would be taken over by his nephew, Albert I. His funeral was met with heavy criticism because of the Congo scandal. His enormous fortune had largely been built through wealth extracted from Central Africa. This attained wealth would not be distributed to his daughters. Though they fought and sued for the inheritance, they received very little. Historians continue debating on the total number of people who died during King Leopold's rule. Because census records from 19th century Central Africa were limited, no exact figure exists. Many modern scholars estimate that population decline, including deaths caused by violence, disease, famine, declining birth rates, forced labor, and displacement, may have reached millions. Some estimates often range as high as around 10 million people. Others argue the true figure may be lower or higher, but nearly all agree the humanitarian toll was catastrophic. Historian Adam Hochschild noted that the loss of life under King Leopold II effectively slashed the population of the Congo Basin by roughly 50%. Today, King Leopold II remains one of history's most controversial rulers. His statues in Belgium have become subject to protests and debate. Some have been removed. Others remain, with plaques explaining the atrocities committed during his reign. His story serves as a reminder that immense suffering can occur not only through open warfare, but also through systems provided by greed, exploitation, and unchecked political power. thank you for watching this video. The research into this video was absolutely wild. In all honesty, after learning about this tyrant, I have to agree with what Chief Powhatan said.
These white men are dangerous.
It's actually insane that I, in my early 30s, am just now learning about this guy. It really baffles me how someone can be that cruel and greedy that all hints of morality goes out the window. What leads a person to want to order others to dismember, torture, and enforce rules with cruelty? That doesn't make sense to me. It really goes to show how much this world relied and continues to rely on the hard work of dark-skinned individuals. History, not only in the United States, but even in Europe, proves this to be true. The fact that several European countries attempted to conquer Africa is scary. May nothing like this ever happen again. If for some odd reason it does, let it not go on for 23 years. On a lighter note, I want to thank the person who suggested this video. You have helped me open my eyes to the atrocities that happened on the African continent and how it was taken advantage of. Keep suggesting videos. And with that being said, thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, make good decisions, and have a wonderful rest of your day.